I'll admit, this is not the video I thought I'd be making right now. Ubisoft has disappointed me time and time again with mediocre open world games that only sell because of the brand attached to them, to the point where when I saw they were making a Star Wars game, I assumed it would be more of the same, but I'm pleasantly surprised. Star Wars matters a lot to me, as it's one of my absolute favorite franchises, or at least the Star Wars I fell in love with is. For better or for worse, George Lucas had a vision, and even if he wasn't the best writer, even in his worst moments, you could take a step back and see the big picture. The prequels certainly weren't perfect and aren't better than the originals, but man, they had something special about them, didn't they? At the core of it was one man's vision, and I think even if it was brought to us in an imperfect way, it was still something that millions of people could enjoy. At the end of the day, Lucas had a very simple ideology: good guys win, bad guys lose, and let's make it fun to be a part of. It seems in a lot of ways we've lost what made Star Wars special since the Disney acquisition. There's no longer a vision for the universe, there's a need to make content. Some of that content is very, very good. Andor is fantastic, and Rogue One felt like it was made by Star Wars fans, being fun, exciting, heartwarming, and containing one scene that made every nerd cheer. Then there were some great games like Fallen Order and Survivor, which, while imperfect, bring a grounded feeling to Star Wars that's challenging yet rewarding to play. Don't let anybody fool you, these are the exception, not the rule. Disney brought back Star Wars with something that was an acceptable but safe reimagining of the original, just to let it be butchered in the name of originality, and finish a trilogy with a whimper as they tried to put the pieces of a broken universe back together with no success. So then there's Outlaws, made by a company with a reputation for putting out nothing but slop, ruining every great thing they touch, turning it into nothing but a boring disappointment, put in charge of a brand in crisis who doesn't seem to have a captain at the helm who knows the sea from the shore. Yet here we are with a game that I simply enjoyed playing the entire time I played it. Yeah, I know, I wouldn't believe me either, but man, I'll be honest, I wasn't even going to do this review. But a good friend wanted my opinion, and I thought, screw it, the rant will be funny at the very least. I thought I'd be roasting both Ubisoft and Star Wars at the same time with a very genuine anger that's been building for years, but I just had a good time. I should say it's not spectacular, not by any means. It's a little above average in a lot of little ways, but man, when it all comes together, it really does become something nice. It's refreshing. To start off with, let's discuss the gameplay. You play as Kay Vess, a wannabe thief, falling through life, managing to reach new heights while the stairs crumble beneath her, and that's kind of how the gameplay feels. In moments, she's fragile, reminding you that she is in fact human, but she's competent, and when you really make the most of her tool belt and what's around you, she can be a total problem on the battlefield. The game really is as fun or as boring as you make it. For a while, I thought it was rather dull because I was playing it like every other third-person shooter, ducking behind cover and taking shots when I could. But then I started to really get into the systems the game had, and it kind of clicked for me. You have a blaster, and it's pretty standard when you start out, just as you'd expect, but over the game, you'll upgrade it piece by piece, literally, allowing you to use it in different ways. You'll get the Ion upgrade that you'll mostly use to power terminals and open doors, but it feels great to switch over to it and blast down a droid. Or the power module that's slow but hits like a truck and can help you clear a path. Customizing your blaster to suit your needs and adapting in combat as you go with the flow feels great. That's before you can bring in your companion by the name of Nyx. He's a great little guy who can literally open doors for you, acting as a way to extend your reach in a way I wish was more popular in games. If you're in a tricky spot, there's pretty good chance Nyx can get you out of it. Maybe you're under heavy fire and need an equalizer. Well, Nyx can grab you that bigger blaster to give you a fighting chance or snatch some heals that you can't get to. Better than that though, he can straight up attack your enemies for you. He won't be killing anyone that's not already on death's door, but he can give you a window to turn their advantage into your advance. Sometimes I can't point to exactly when I figured out the gameplay was good, but here I can. I was doing some side quests in a cave and had made a bad choice and exposed myself, kicking off a fight, so I sent Nyx to detonate an explosive container to give me some wiggle room. When they went off, I realized it kicked up so much dust and dirt I could use it as cover to take off and get around behind them through a side room. No matter how you cut it, that's damn fine combat. And from then on, I was always looking for new ways to make the world into my weapon, something I never expected to be doing in this game. The stealth is good too. The detection is a bit iffy, with some people not seeing you right in front of them and others seeing you from Narnia, but with Nyx at your side, you're given plenty of ways to get through a level quietly. Admittedly, the animations for stealth attacks are laughably bad and downright immersion breaking with her why I oughta ass takedowns, but the majority of the time when I'm trying to be sneaky and mess it up, it feels like my fault, and I like that. And I also like that there's almost a grace period there, where if someone sees you but you're alone and close enough to take them down by hand, they can't speak telepathically to the others in the area, so you can keep your discoveries limited to small disasters, rather than feeling any need to load a save or give up on stealth completely. There's a ton I can say positively about this game when it comes to on-foot exploration and combat, with both being great. However, you aren't always on foot, and that creates a problem. If you're on console, you probably don't have to worry about anything I'm about to say right now, but for my PC homies out there, I'm going to warn you that the vehicle controls in this game for mouse and keyboard feel like intentional malice more than ignorance. I can only imagine a dev came in off a 3-day bender, still drunk, ripped 4 lines of coke, and then said, "Yup! Let's make it so speeder controls with WASD, but also leans instead of looks around by default when you move the mouse, so you have to press mouse 2 to look around instead, so you crash all the fucking time. Oh, and let's make it a slow in a straight line for a long distance travel, but impossible to control when you need any kind of precision at a small speed." Honestly, flying the ship isn't nearly as bad, but it still isn't fun, and I found myself in the habit of having a controller to plug in when I needed to fly somewhere because precise movement through the nebula or an asteroid field when you're in a dogfight just isn't possible. I will say, though, that vehicles feel just fine on a controller, which is, I assume, what they were designed for. With that, it's time to discuss the world they built here and what it's like to get around in it. I have to say that Ubisoft really played to their strengths here. If we can all agree on one thing about that company, is that they know how to bring a place from history to life, and it turns out they do it just as well with fictional history. Most of these are new places for me, but one that isn't is Mos Eisley, which is so perfect I can't describe it. It was so unique to finally walk in these worlds as a normal person. I just got to be a part of Star Wars, and that's something I've always wanted. Whether it was the seedy underbelly of Murgana, the icy streets of Kijimi, the jungles of Akiva, it all feels like Star Wars. When I ride my speeder across the vast dunes of Tatooine, I'm brought back to putting in that VHS as a child and finding myself lost in the magic. Fan service is a popular thing these days. It turns out nostalgia sells, and I'm no better than anyone else in this department. Being in Jabba's palace and seeing his favorite wall decoration, or catching a glimpse at his best bounty hunter, seeing old legends or remnants of a past that feels so close at hand, I can't help but find myself in love with the world. I can count on one hand the games that I just wanted to explore in, the ones that made me curious, the ones where even when I didn't find anything, I just wanted to know what was around the corner. This is what I begged for in Assassin's Creed. I was desperate for a world that didn't demand I explore it due to level gaps and the need for runtime, but rather invited me to take part in the enjoyment of it, and I can't believe this is where I found it. I couldn't tell you the last time I just forgot about the main story in a game because I got so caught up in everything else and was having too much fun to stop. I wanted the next part for my blaster, I wanted the next ability upgrade, and I wanted to sit in for the next sabacc table for a round of cards. All that before we even discuss the game's big idea, syndicates. Basically gangs that Kay will either work for or against while trying to balance her reputation with each. Very often, missions you take for one syndicate will pit you against another one, and how you do will determine how bad the fallout is. It's possible to stealth your way into a base and leave without anyone being the wiser, but if you're caught, you'll lose rep and could find yourself on the wrong end of a powerful group. On the flip side, earning a syndicate's trust can earn you awesome rewards like high-level gear, access to better contracts, better vendors, and more access to their bases. It's funny, in a lot of ways I can feel the influence of Obsidian on this game, and I can only assume they found some inspiration in games like New Vegas and The Outer Worlds, especially with that title screen. Admittedly, I don't think the syndicate system is really that big of a deal, and isn't what I'd lean into should they make a sequel, but as of right now, I'm happy with it existing as a part of a larger whole. That being said, while I won't spoil anything right now, we should at least touch on the main story. It's alright. I mean, it kept me moving. Kay in gameplay feels great, but narratively, she feels like a character that's always in the prologue, and maybe that was intentional, but I didn't care for her, or any character in the game if I'm being entirely honest. There is one particular sequence where something major happens on Tatooine, if you know you know, and all of a sudden Kay becomes an amazing character, and I cared in that moment more than any other time in the game. For that hour or so, she was so phenomenal, but not at any point before or after that. Starting off as a bumbling rookie who screws everything up is fine, but it never feels like she has any growth. She receives many harsh lessons, but never seems to learn from any of them, always seeming to make the same mistakes over and over again, but getting away with it over and over again. She's better than the characters around her, though, if I'm honest, who are all rather dull and don't inspire any real connection that you'd expect in a game that has you building a team. You can see betrayals coming from a mile away, and nothing will really surprise you in terms of the story, but it's fun. Like all Ubisoft games made post Assassin's Creed Revelations, the story simply acts as a hand guiding you from one adventure to the next, and honestly, I'm completely fine with that, because I enjoyed all those little adventures. You know what else I enjoyed? Actually getting to enjoy the story at my own pace with no artificial barriers preventing me from progressing or encouraging me to buy a time saver pack or a legendary weapon. Tell you the truth, if there even is an in-game store for microtransactions, I never noticed one, which is a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. Guys, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm recommending you go out and buy Star Wars Outlaws. Not the Ultimate Edition. There's nothing in there you need, and that one mission is totally not worth the asking price. But the game itself is something to be praised, it really is. It's just fun. I love a strong narrative and great characters and solid writing, but guys, tell you the truth, I just enjoyed this so much, I didn't care about any of that being absent. Trust me on this one. If you love Star Wars, give this one a chance, because if you criticize their failures without ever praising their successes, how will they ever know they've done the right thing? This one's a winner. Show them some love. Well, thanks for hanging out. I don't review new games very often, but it's just because there's not many new games that interest me, with the next one probably going to be Indiana Jones. But as for the rest of the month, I have another Siege Pro story coming out, along with Mass Effect 3 behind it, which I'm very excited for, even if the last one didn't do all that well. Anyways, I appreciate anyone and everyone who's come around to hang out. That's it for me on this one, though, guys. This is Purple, signing off. Have a wonderful night, and always remember to smile. Thanks, guys.